And welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disasters, crises, emergency management, disaster psychology, chaos, COVID, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prosper and do better during a disaster. Today, I kind of dug into some archives from an older show that I did on the Voice America Radio Network. For those of you that don't know, I have a talk radio show there, Preparing for the Unexpected. So I go through some of the same things there. I've been doing that for 3.5 years, over 3.5 years now. So today I thought I'd pull out one of those old topics and kind of go through it here. The reason being is I've started to come across recently on LinkedIn and some of these other sites where people are saying, business continuity plans have to contain this information and that information. And I'm one for not having big, thick binders with hundreds of pages in them. The smaller, the better, quicker to the point. If you can't find what to do in the first 2-3 pages, it's not worth going through. The reason being is in a disaster, no one's got time to read all that crap because we put too much fluff in it. And that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm going to go through today. 12 items that don't put in these plans. You want to open up a binder or a flip chart or something really quick and just have a couple of pages that tells you what to do. If you've got a detailed activity report to go through, just reference it. Don't recreate the report in all these activities. It's unnecessary fluff. You'll be flipping through pages and pages and pages trying to find out, okay, well, fine, I know I need the report. What's next? My first contract when I started working solo years ago, 14 years ago now, 14, 15 years ago, they had experienced a situation a couple of weeks just before I got there. And they showed me this business continuity plan that was like really thick. They couldn't use any of it, but they paid thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for it, and they couldn't use it. So what I've done over the years, because I used to have all this stuff in plans too, don't get me wrong. I'm passing along information from my own experiences, lessons learned, what works and what doesn't work. So, take everything with a grain of salt, but it's, real world stuff, and it's stuff that I do now, and people, clients have liked it better. All the stuff that I'm going to go through today and mention that I call fluff in a business continuity plan, I tend to put in a separate document outside of the business continuity plans, outside of disaster plans, outside of the crisis management plan. And I track all of this stuff in one big document, and then I get it to audit and say, here's when it was last tested. Here's the section that was updated. That way my 2-3 pages quickly update it and give them back to who needs it, instead of drawing it out and getting sign-offs and all that stuff, which you may still need. I'm not saying you don't, but I'm not going to keep it in this plan. I'm going to keep it out separately. So I'm going to go through some of these things. I had to write it all down so I remember them all to tell you. And the first one is distribution list. I don't care. If you've got a business continuity plan and you've got all these different people and all the date they received it, the version they received, who mailed it, how they received it, did they confirm getting it back? Not information a user needs. It's fluff. You're going to hear me say that word a lot, fluff. So I track all of that in that separate document, the program overview type thing, or the program management overview, and to track all of that stuff in there. Here's who's got what plan and what version, and track all the sign-offs, or confirmation emails that they received it, or whatever the case may be, all separate. Don't put that in a business continuity plan. Next, methodology you used. I couldn't care less what methodology you used to create my plan, or how many meetings you had to do it. I'm a user. I need to pull out this plan. I need to make things happen right away. and flipping through pages of we used ISO such and such, or this guideline or that guideline, and we use these sections. Don't care. If you want to track all that, again, put it in the other document. Don't put it in your BCP plans. Assumptions. Track all your assumptions in an assumption log. And I know in future shows, I'm going to probably talk about project management, because I also work in program and project management. So capture all your assumptions in the assumption log. You know, when a disaster hits, the disaster or the crisis is going to dictate to you what's going to happen. Having a list of assumptions, oh, does my disaster, does this building on fire, does it mean that, oh, it's just that floor? You're not even going to read them. You're going to look for action, right? Action steps. That's what it should be. So all of those assumptions, track them in a log and revisit them. If you are testing, make sure you test those assumptions to prove they're right, amend them, update them, or say, nope, this is no longer valid because this process we don't even do anymore, or activity is not done anymore. You know, it's outsourced. So this now assumption is now a risk we have with this third-party vendor. You know, as a user, you don't want to read all that stuff either, because that can go on for pages as well. You know, this BCP plan, this business continuity plan, was documented under the following assumptions. I don't care. My building's on fire. Don't care what assumption you have. Meeting schedules. I started to get there in the last section here, but with part of the methodologies, all the meetings you held and who attended them, I don't care. Who cares? You know, track all that separate again. You know, and how many documents actually, have that? Third-party applications, for BIAs or BCPs or other different pieces related to BCM don't contain all this information. So why does it need to be in the business continuity plan itself? There may be a section where people are tracking some of that stuff in applications, but really it means nothing. I don't care if you met on Tuesday 3 months ago. Whoopie-doo. All I want to know is that this plan, I can take it and use it. So next is the maintenance schedule. How often you're going to update and review this plan. Well, if you've got a good mature program in place with the right people in place, they're a part of project management, they're updating your business continuity plans as things happen on a daily basis, not a 1 year, in January, we look at BIAs. In February, we look at risk assessments. In March, we look at contingency strategies. Now you should be doing that, all of it, on an ongoing basis. Projects and program management is continuous in an organization. Change is the only constant. Be a part of that. Know what's going on and go back and start identifying what needs to change in what plan, where. We just have a new line of business. Okay, now I need a new contingency strategy for this. What are we going to do? It's a workaround, if this field doesn't populate properly. All those kind of things. We don't need to know when different aspects of the plan are going to be updated, because it's supposed to be continuous. So don't include that in your plans. I'm not a big fan of names, but I do know when names need to be involved. Your crisis management team leader, your key people. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is if somebody is a part of let's say the finance team, crisis management team, it's got everybody in order of seniority. I only need to know who's in charge and who's their alternate if they're not, and maybe a second alternate, if they're not. I don't need the entire list of names who work in the finance department. Can you imagine trying to maintain that? Who's going to maintain that? HR is going to look at you, because obviously they've got everybody's name. They're going to look at you and just go, what the heck do you need this information for? But believe it or not, I've seen it in continuity plans. Don't put it in there. It's not needed for anything. The audience. Who is kind of like the distribution, who's this document, made for? And be careful, because you should be making this document for the people who need it. You shouldn't be making it for audit. You shouldn't be making it for any kind of compliance or anyone other than the people who are going to pick it up and use it. That's your audience. You may be distributing the document, your BIA, your BCP, your IT disaster recovery plan, your emergency evacuation procedures, your crisis management plan to different people as an FYI to get feedback. But still, that information is not needed in your actual documented plans. Your audience has to be the users. And if there's 4 people in IT, that's your audience for it. And again, track it somewhere else. But then be careful, because those names can change all the time as positions change. People promote up, promote down, promote across, leave the organization. Somebody new comes in. How are you going to keep all that updated? Or you're going to go back to it once a year, and all of a sudden you've got so much to update, you can't ever get a real hold on it anymore. Program descriptors. By this, I mean, I've part of that big binder that I mentioned earlier with my first client, there were pages of identifying other components of their disaster response program, their business continuity management program. I'm holding in my hand the business continuity piece. This is what I need, 2-3 pages that tells me all the things I need to do, under certain circumstances. But there were more pages that told me just different pieces of the program, defining this is what a BIA is. This is what a risk assessment is. This is the executive support. Who cares? I need the actions. Again, I'm a big believer in the KISS principle. I don't mean Gene Simmons with the long tongue. I mean, keep it simple, stupid. Anyone has to pick that up and be able to navigate their way through. The more detailed and more fluff you've got in there about risks and how you're going to test and all this other stuff, makes all that work, even though you've put a lot of work into it and a lot of effort and a lot of reviews, a lot of meetings, in the end, it comes to naught. No one can use it. Approvals, keep that off to the side, track them separately. I don't need a document that has attachments of the senior vice president's approval email, or a documented signature. Audit may want it. Well, great. Give it to audit, but don't put it in these documents. Put it in that other document that I mentioned before. If you've got a section on the BIA and you've asked for approvals from the senior vice president of IT and finance, or whoever it may be, fine, then you can just embed their 2 email attachments that says they approve all the findings and everything in here, and with the dates and everything, and then review periods, if you do it that way, next year's approvals, whoever they may be. So don't put that in the actual document, because they're not, like I said, this stuff's not going to get read. Project management definition, it's a lot like methodology, but to the extent though that I've come across where a business continuity plan or a disaster recovery crisis management plan, even an evacuation plan, was how they were going to manage change and document change logs and decision logs, assumption logs, activity logs, stakeholder management, all these various different components of project management overall. Well, keep it off to the side again. Again, put it in that one document. And believe me, that one document with all this information that I'm mentioning, that's the one place you have to maintain everything. Everything else, if there's no change to a plan, perfect. You track that in that other document saying, it was reviewed, we updated it on such and such day, this section, in this document. So everything always refers in this one key document to these different plans that you have. And it makes them much more usable. It cuts back on the amount of paper that you end up printing, and people are able to follow them a lot more. Reporting mechanisms, when we're going to report on our program, well, it's got nothing to do with the continuity strategy. When a user is standing there going through their document, their list, this is what I need to do. Who cares? I don't care that the business continuity professional, practitioner, consultant, contractor, whoever, when they're doing a status report to emerge the executive team, what's that got to do with me, who's got my IT disaster recovery plan in front of me on how to rebuild a mainframe? It means nothing. Or reconnect a network, bring up Outlook, whatever. It means absolutely nothing. So use that plan. Oh, and the last part, sorry, is testing and exercise results. You know, yes, we do need them. Like none of this stuff that I've said are items that we don't need. We do. It's just where it goes. If you have a test or exercise, whether it be a tabletop, a component, you know, a full simulation, you know, either that be announced or unannounced, you know, document all the results, you know, and identify in that overview document of what plan had been tested, what part of that plan was tested, put all your results in there. You know, this part of this plan was tested on this date, you know, and then you've got your separate documentation of all the findings, you know, an executive summary. These were all the issues we encountered. Here's our plan to mitigate the risks that came out of that test. Here's our action plan to resolve these activities, you know, issues, concerns that we ran into during the test, you know, and our next steps. You know, that's obviously a separate document, but it doesn't need to go in to an action document that someone is actually going to need, right? One of those executive summaries may say, we need to update the mainframe recovery document with XYZ information. Okay, that's an action item, tracked in your action log. It's listed in your test exercise summary, but that doesn't have to be in the IT mainframe document. You just go in and update it and give it the new version. There you go, done. And then update your overview saying my mainframe recovery document is now this version. And close your action item. You know, project management, right? Making sure it all works together. So those are my recommendations. There's 12 of them there of doing that. It's worked for me. You know, when audit says, you know, when was the last time such and such was tested, I give them the document, say, here's, you know, section 5 relates to everything that's testing related. It shows you everything that's been tested over the last year, what part of the plan, you know, and with a link saying to, you know, here's where the plan is on the network, or, you know, wherever you keep them. I find it's worked so much better. Audit appreciates it because they're not all of a sudden getting a 1,000-page binder they have to try and hunt down. Users appreciate it because they know, oh, in a couple of pages, it tells me what I need to do. And if it references other documents that already exist, just reference those documents with a link to where they go. You know, and if you keep, you know, hard copies off-site, you make sure there's a hard copy of those documents that are referenced. You know, but your contingency plan just has a list. Here's what we go through. You know, it works out a lot better, takes out all the fluff, and allows users to actually know their plan better. You know, if I gave you a 1,000-page binder, are you really going to read it? But if I gave you 2-3 pages of activities you need to consider or action right away, linking you to other resources that you need, it's going to be a lot easier for you, taking out all the fluff. You don't have to flip through hundreds of pages before the first action. And that first contract I mentioned, that binder, big blue binder, it was page 700 and something. I just remember 700. You know, I can't remember the final number, but page 700 and something before the first actual action item appeared. It's because it contained all of this other information that I just went through and more. There's more. That's just 12. You know, but I don't have a copy of that plan here. Otherwise, I could probably point out a lot more. So keep it simple. You know, these are 12 things. Don't put in your actual plans. House them somewhere else. You know, the plans are for users, right? They're not for volume does not equate quality. So, you know, make your plans easier. Don't have them contain all this extra crap that you don't need, all this fluff. Put it somewhere else. You know, and that'll satisfy, you know, your audit and compliance people. So until next time, if you're happy with some of the things I've said, thumbs up. If you're not, thumbs down is okay too. Just leave a comment and tell me why. You know, maybe we could get you on the show to talk about it, or have another show to expand on a thought or an idea. You know, and of course, subscribe so we can keep giving you all these little helpful hints as we go along. So in the meantime, everybody, stay prepared.